So how do we destroy those surface tension properties? Well, there's two things we could do really. One would be to add a detergent like soap, and that would do it. But the other would be to make the sand very, very wet. So the particles of sand are now separate from each other, and they're some distance apart in the water. They're actually suspended in the water a lot more, and they're some distance apart. And so consequently, the forces that are holding those sand particles together are now greatly reduced. You're pretty much on the border of creating what you might call quicksand there, although quicksand normally forms with smaller particle-sized particles. So yeah, just to recap, we've added a load more water, stir that in, a lot of the particles of sand are now in suspension, the forces of surface tension are drastically reduced between the sand particles, and the sand is now very runny. And I think you might better guess what happens if we turn that over now. Okay, you can see a lot of the sand runs out. Some sand still stays in even now, and that's because in the space of time it took me to stir that and then pour it back into there, a lot of the sand particles had separated out into the bottom and had become close enough together again for surface tension to work. So we just did that again. Okay, as I say, when the sand is compacted down or sediments out into the bottom of that container, surface tension will work, the sand particles will hold together when you separate them out with enough water. It's the kind of situation that arises on a poorly drained track when you've got a lot of either surface water or water lurking just below the surface that you can't see. The sand particles there are partly in suspension in that water, and the surface tension isn't working. Those sand particles are very mobile. You can freely move those. There's no resistance to movement at all. That's what happens, as I say, with a poorly drained track. The kind of thing that happens when people think the sand is hard and add more water to it. Now, of course, if you have a poorly drained track such that the water gradually drains and the top of the sand is above the waterline and the bottom of the sand is below the waterline, then this is what's going on the underlayers of sand, and yet on the surface layer of sand you can actually have a hard layer of sand. Now if that hard layer is deep enough, people think the track is too hard and they will add more water, and that will just worsen the problem. And also, as you can imagine, if you've got a hard layer of sand on top of this, then that layer of sand will be mobile because it won't have any support from this underlying layer. So again, just give that a stir, tip it out into there, and a lot of the sand comes out. Again, not all of it because surface tension is holding this sand together here. But as I say, we've drastically reduced surface tension by adding water. Okay.